In October 2015, a disturbing story made headlines. In the heart of Uganda, in a place known as the Pearl of Africa, 21-year-old Dutch medical student Sofia Kotsie mysteriously disappeared. She had come to the country to help people injured at a local hospital, and then decided to reward herself with a safari trip. But she never returned. Local authorities rushed to close the case, offering a simple, convenient explanation. A wild animal had attacked the girl. But the more evidence emerged, the more obvious it became that something far darker and more terrifying lay behind her disappearance. Sofia Isabella Frederica Kotsie, born on April 2nd, 1994, in Amsterdam, to Gerard Kotsie and Maria Sleekerman, was the eldest of 3 children, an intelligent, open, and incredibly compassionate girl, whose energy seemed boundless. In her youth, she devoted several years to a youth theater school, where she honed her confidence and love of the stage. This passion taught her to be vibrant and unafraid of attention. But her true calling was medicine. Decided to dedicate her life to helping people. She was a person of action, adored sports, played basketball and hockey, and collected her thoughts while jogging through Amsterdam's famous Voendal Park. At the time of the tragic events, she was only 21 years old, but already had a bachelor's degree in medicine. She confidently pursued her dream of becoming a doctor. And then, in the summer of 2015, driven by a thirst for adventure and a desire to gain invaluable experience, she went to Uganda for an 8-week internship. Everyone who knew Sofia unanimously declared that a bright future awaited her. She was remarkably goal-oriented, easily combining intensive studies with part-time jobs, from handing out flyers to babysitting. Her ultimate dream was to become a tropical medicine specialist. It wasn't just a career aspiration, but a true calling to help people in the most remote corners of the planet while experiencing the world. It was this love of travel and new cultures that brought her to Uganda. Sofia threw herself into her work. Her hospital colleagues were impressed by her diligence and dedication. She assisted in surgeries, delivered babies, and didn't shy away from any kind of work, even picking up a mop and washing floors if necessary. She lived in student dormitory with a dozen other interns, and despite the constant hustle and bustle, Sofia savored every day. She fell in love with Uganda, its people, nature, and culture. She even began learning the local language to better understand and connect with her patients. Almost every day, Sofia called her family, enthusiastically talking about her work and new experiences. The country had captivated her so much that she seriously considered returning after completing her studies, and perhaps even staying permanently. But beyond that, it was a serious illness that affected her condition, causing periods of emotional outbursts, impulsivity, and instability. These episodes required constant monitoring, thanks to medication and family support. Sofia learned to control her illness and led a completely normal life. However, it was this diagnosis that would later become the central, highly controversial element in the investigation into her disappearance. Sofia's internship came to an end on October 22, 2015. She felt her African adventure was not yet over, and decided to stay for another 2 weeks to explore the country's natural beauty. On October 23rd, she set off on a 5-day safari with 2 other students from the Netherlands. The safari was provided by a local driver guide. Their names were never revealed by the investigation. The route was eventful and took them through some of Uganda's most picturesque corners. They visited Fort Portal, Kitala Valley National Park, and the towns of Gulu and Pakwach. Their final stop was Murchison Falls National Park, Uganda's largest and most famous. This area is renowned for its mighty waterfalls and incredible wildlife diversity, including lions, elephants, gematodes, and enormous Nile crocodiles. Around midday on October 28th, the group arrived at the park. After a breathtaking boat ride along the Victorian Nile, they checked into a student education center run by the Uganda Wildlife Authority. It was a fairly basic camp with small cabins, common areas, and toilets, located a few dozen meters from the living quarters. As they began unpacking, Sofia grabbed a small empty water bottle, which she had used as a bin during the trip, and headed toward the toilets. It was around 6:30 p.m. The sun was setting and it was quickly getting dark. One of the camp staff saw her near the toilets. She stood thoughtfully, looking toward the river, which was about 600 meters from the camp. This was the last confirmed sighting of Sofia alive. A few minutes passed, and her friends noticed she hadn't returned and went to check the toilets. She wasn't there. They walked around the entire camp. I called her name, but there was no answer. It was as if the girl had vanished into thin air. Within 15 minutes, realizing something serious had happened, they reported her missing to the local rangers. A search began. But the deepening African night made it virtually impossible and futile. The rangers combed the area with flashlights, and the friends desperately tried to get her attention. They started the car, turned on her favorite song, and played it on repeat, hoping she would hear the familiar melody and respond. But only the sounds of the wild came from the darkness. By 9 p.m., still unable to find Sofia, one of her companions made the most terrifying call of his life. He called her mother, Sofia Kotsie. Maria, who had recently visited her daughter in Uganda, was devastated by the news. Without wasting a minute, she began preparing for her flight to Uganda the next day. Soon, the first clue emerged. The very same small plastic bottle Sofia had left with. It was lying just 5 meters from the riverbank, but its discovery raised more questions than it answered. Why was the bottle there? Had Sofia really been so close to the water? The Nile in this area is deadly, especially at night. Its waters are teeming with crocodiles and hippos, considered some of the most aggressive animals in Africa. Authorities immediately assumed a predatory attack, but it soon became clear that the situation was far more complex. On October 30th, approximately 40 hours after her disappearance, Sofia's belongings were discovered scattered near the spot where the bottle was found. The scene was extremely unnatural. Among the finds were her hiking pants, one boot, sunglasses, a torn 1,000-shilling note, and an empty souvenir bag. But the strangest and most ominous detail was the pieces of fabric torn from her pants, tangled in a tree branch about 5 meters up. The arrangement of the items seemed completely illogical. Furthermore, there was not a drop of blood or signs of a struggle at the site, so how could the pants have ended up there? So high up in the tree, why were the items scattered over such a large area, and most importantly, where were the signs of the attack and Sofia herself? Even stranger was the fact that the rangers who combed the area saw none of this the first night. The items only reappeared there 40 hours later. Suspicion immediately arose as to whether someone had planted them later to stage an animal attack and throw the investigation down. A false trail. Survival expert and private investigator Thomas Cohen, after examining photographs of the evidence, came to a shocking conclusion. The pants had not been torn by the animal's fangs, but carefully cut with a knife and then torn by hand. The lack of blood or remains only reinforced doubts. As Thomas aptly noted, no animal in the world would hang clothes on trees and carefully arrange personal belongings. The entire scene looked like a crude and clumsy production. The animal attack theory was extremely convenient for Ugandan authorities, allowing them to quickly close the case and avoid a scandal that could have harmed the tourism industry. But the facts spoke otherwise. No one had heard screams. There were no animal tracks at the site, and the route from the camp to the river was difficult, overgrown, and dangerous, especially at night. For a foreigner with no survival experience, navigating it in complete darkness was virtually impossible. During the investigation, attention shifted again to Sofia's health. As mentioned, her bipolar disorder could cause periods of impulsivity and overconfidence. According to her companions, around October 26th, 2 days before her disappearance, Sofia's behavior became unusual. She barely slept, talked incessantly, and engaged in risky behavior. Rumor has it that she sat by the fire until late, possibly breaking chairs to add fuel to the flames. When the girl's strange behavior became apparent, tension arose in the group. The friends considered calling her mother, but Sofia persuaded them not to. The guide, in an attempt to defuse the situation, even changed the route to a more peaceful one. However, when they arrived in Murchison Falls, her condition seemed to normalize. But then the instability returned with renewed vigor. It's believed that, in such a vulnerable state, she may have trusted the wrong person or, in a fit of rage, left the camp alone. Her diagnosis certainly complicated the case. It might explain why Sofia left the camp, but it didn't explain the strange arrangement of her belongings or her complete, traceless disappearance. Her family insisted that nothing like this had ever happened to her, and she had never even considered taking her own life. On October 30th, the girl's mother, Sofia Kotsie, arrived in Murchison Falls. She arrived with representatives from the Dutch embassy. The search immediately escalated. Helicopters and even a drone team sent from the Netherlands were deployed, but no trace of Sofia was ever found. Ugandan media coverage of the story was limited, with the animal attack theory accepted as the primary theory, and the case was soon officially closed. Meanwhile, Dutch media continued to pursue the story, raising numerous questions about what might have actually happened. The girl's mother, Maria, did not give up in the following years. She returned to Uganda more than 20 times, conducting her own investigation, finding more and more inconsistencies with the official reports. In 2019, she stumbled upon a crucial clue. Former Uganda Wildlife Authority employee Stephen Nyandrew claimed to have seen Sofia talking to another park employee on the night of her disappearance. This second person categorically denied everything and was never properly questioned. Maria also uncovered a shocking fact, which had been omitted for some reason. On the night of the disappearance, approximately 400 new Uganda Wildlife Authority recruits were undergoing field training just 2 kilometers from the student camp. A reasonable question arose: had the investigation checked the alibis of all these people? All of Sofia's belongings found were sent to the Netherlands for testing. DNA testing confirmed they were hers. However, an unknown male DNA profile was also found on them. This discovery was a turning point, pointing to the high probability of abduction or violent crime. Too many people were nearby, and the scene with the belongings looked staged. Suspicions arose of an attempt to cover up the truth, perhaps to protect someone close to them or to avoid criticism of the park's security system, as it's so easy to blame it on a wild animal. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged. The official story of an animal attack was effectively debunked. Drowning was considered, as was the idea that Sofia had simply gotten lost. But no one heard screams, no trace was found, and no body was recovered. The theory of self-imposed extermination due to her diagnosis was firmly rejected by her family. Sofia truly loved life, had grandiose plans for the future, and was close to her family. One of the most discussed and frightening theories is abduction, possibly for the purpose of human trafficking, supported by both strange clues and the presence of foreign DNA. Sofia may have been taken by someone in the camp or nearby. The lack of evidence of a struggle in the blood could indicate an experienced agent capable of covering their tracks. It's worth remembering that just 2 kilometers away were hundreds of trained recruits who were well-versed in the search for any clues in the wilderness, and the girl's precarious state could have made her easy prey. This theory is terrifying, especially given the stubborn silence of the local authorities. But without direct evidence, it remains just a theory. Sofia's family continues their desperate fight for the truth. Maria is raising funds, hiring private investigators, and demanding that the authorities reopen the investigation. In 2019, the Ugandan prosecutor did indeed order a new investigation, but it stalled due to the pandemic and the 2021 elections. Maria still insists on DNA testing, that of the very same employee who was allegedly last seen with Sofia, with a sample found on her belongings. This could either clear him of suspicion or be a real breakthrough in the case. The latest news on this case appeared in June 2024. Was in the doc. The guide who accompanied Sofia's group. It was discovered that he did not have a valid license, which, according to authorities, could have indirectly contributed to the tragedy. At the trial, the same witness, Stephen Yadrew, testified that the night before her disappearance, Sofia and her friends violated camp rules, playing loud music, and around 4 a.m., he saw Sofia banging on the wooden panels and trying to set fire to the grass. Clear signs of her worsening condition. Stephen claimed to have warned Michael, the guide, about the need to take the girl to the hospital. But he ignored his words, and the next evening, Sofia disappeared. This is the only court case related to this case so far, and it doesn't even address the fact of her disappearance. The family, led by her resilient mother, Maria Slakerman, continues their fight for answers, hoping to one day solve this dark mystery. What do you think? Did Sofia fall victim to wildlife, as Ugandan authorities claim, or did she encounter a predator?